Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
Guys, welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. This episode is going to be with what I consider one of the most funny, coolest dudes that is in the industry. It is with Mr. Michael Pitts of REALTREE. If you know who Pitts is, obviously, you know he's hilarious. He's a really good dude. He knows how to kill big deer, and he's also a firefighter. So I do want to talk to him about that some. It's going to be one of those episodes that you kind of just, it's his first time on here. So we're going to obviously do like his background because I'm curious how he got into what he's currently doing. And, we're just going to dive into it and see where it goes. So before we do all that, got to get the partners out of the way. Working Class Bow Hunter, as you guys know, been a huge fan of them for years and just recently partnered up with them for the 2025 year, season, whatever you want to call it. So if you want to rep some of their merchandise, go to workingclassbowhunter.com. Look at all the new stuff that they've got. I'm wearing one of the hats right now. Wear it all the time. Super comfortable. Great quality stuff. And when you do that, when you pick out whatever you want, use the code SEBH15 to save 15%. Next up is going to be the boutique. Michael is coming out with some awesome designs for this year. Dude is just absolutely killing it. So if you want to get the best arrow wraps on the market, go to the boutiquellc.com and look at everything he has to offer. And he can also do custom wraps for you as well. That means any logo that you guys run, any maybe Bible verse or just anything, like literally anything you can put on there and he will make it for you. When you do that, use the code SEBHP for free shipping at checkout. Next up is going to be Osseo gear. So Osseo has been working flawlessly this season. Best camo I've ever worn. I know that, Michael Pitts is with REALTREE, and I'm a huge fan of REALTREE, but I choose Osseo in the woods for me. That you don't have to, but I think that if you are open to the idea of changing your camo, if you're not using Osseo, definitely give them a shot because the quality is unmatched. The pattern is unlike anything else out there. It's just a great product, and I know they've got a lot of new stuff coming for 2025. So if you're at ATA, or if you were at ATA and got to talk with them, I honestly, actually, I don't even know if they're there. If they're there, you definitely wanted to talk with Joe and everybody up there. So if you go to osseogear.com, you can look at all of their late season stuff, their mid season and early season. It's all great quality. It's definitely worth it. And it will make a difference in the woods for you. I can fully attest to that. So use the code SEBH to save 15% site-wide. Next up is going to be Summit Tree Stands. They actually just dropped some new products. And what's bad is I don't have it in front of me. It just dropped today, but they've got, I forget what it's called, but they've got this they've got this seat that clips onto a tree for rifle hunters or bow hunters who don't want to get up in a tree. It's literally like an upper platform of a climber that you can just set on the tree anywhere you want. And it is honestly pretty cool. I know they've also got an all-season umbrella that's coming out. They've got a pole rope, a new pole rope that's coming out. I think it's called the Ultimate Bow Rope or something like that. Excuse me. Good Lord. They also have a retractable gear hoist, which I think is really cool. I'm planning on actually getting one of those. So yeah, Summit's really, innovating in my opinion when it comes to accessories with climbers or just tree stands in general. And I also honestly trust their tree stands more than anything else I've used. My climber has been working great. If you haven't checked out the Dual Threat Pro SD, I highly recommend you do because it covers all bases. So go to summitstands.com and use the code SEBH15 for 15%. And trust me, you will not be disappointed. Next up is going to be Scout Tech. Ryan actually made a post today at the time of recording this about still having a tag to fill. I still have 2 buck tags to fill. But my Scout Tech cameras have been working flawlessly. It's honestly surprising like how good quality everything is that they do. So if you are looking to change cameras for this coming off season to keep up with your bucks, to try and find new spots, or I guess to put out at new spots, give Scout Tech a try. They've got some really cool stuff coming out this year, and I'm very excited to see it. So go to scouttech.com, look at everything they offer, and you will not be disappointed. Next up is going to be Ace Hardware and Social Circle. My boys are up at ATA right now. Hunter's been sort of giving me the rundown and everything he's seen some mutual friends of ours, so that's been really cool. Ace is a archery shop in Social Circle that covers all bases. They sell everything you need. They sell all the top level bows, all the top level sights, rests, all that stuff. So go check them out. Next up is going to be Bergie Bowsmith. Bergie came on a few weeks ago. I'm actually going to be going on his podcast soon in a few weeks. Very excited about that. I'm happy for him that he's starting to do that and sort of get in the podcast game. It's going to be cool to see how that goes for him. But he is the bow wizard. That dude, if you listen to our episode, we can go back and forth for hours about just bows and arrows and all of that. The dude knows how to tune a bow. So if you want to get your bow just completely dialed in, send it to Bergie. Go to bergiebowsmith.com and fill out whatever form it is to get him to tune your bow for you. And he is also a dealer for a lot of the top level brands that we use. So go check that out as well. And at checkout, this is for the stuff he is a dealer for and for the service of getting your bow tuned. Use the code SEBH10 and that will save you 10% off the entire order. Next up is going to be VPA. I know VPA is at ATA right now. They've got some really cool stuff coming down the line. Once I see it, I will put it in the intro. They have not sent me any photos of what's coming. I have no idea what's happening with that, but I trust VPA. It's American-made broadhead, lifetime warranty. Like, you really can't argue that. They have over 70 different types of broadheads you could choose from as well. So that is really cool. If you go to vparchery.com and look at all the stuff, if you want to give them a shot, use the code SEBH10 to also save 10%. Next up will be Dialed Archery. I know that Dialed is at ATA. All these guys are pretty much there, right? So ATA, I was supposed to go this year. It didn't exactly work out. Hopefully going to get to go next year. But Dialed Archery has the new proof sight. And I am extremely shocked, or not really shocked. I'm hyped. I'm excited for what Dialed is doing. They no longer sell the Arxos. It is the proof only. And I've said it before, it's basically the Arxos, but upgraded, which I never thought was possible, but they did it. There's a lot of cool things coming from Dialed. So keep an eye out for that. Go to dialedarchery.com to order your proof today, and you can customize it any way you want. It is freaking awesome. Next up is going to be Camo Dust. Camo Dust has been working great. I use it every time I go in the woods, and it is the only dry powder scent control product that I know of on the market. So go to camodust.com, look at everything that they offer, listen to our episode with Chris from a few weeks back. And when you do order Camo Dust, make sure you get the 6-pack. Okay. If you don't get a 6-pack, you're kind of wasting money because the 6-pack will last you all season. And deer season for us is ending in like 3 days, unless you're in an extended archery county. But even then, it's another 2 to 3 weeks. Camo Dust will keep you covered, keep you hidden, and it works. I mean, it just works. Okay. So that I don't know. I don't know what else you want me to say. Last but not least is going to be Full Force Hunting Products out of Michigan. They offer scent ropes, scent products. What I've been using is the feed and the mineral. That stuff is going to be really crucial here soon. Is if you're able to feed your deer, make sure that they've got enough protein and mineral to get them through these cold next few weeks to a month, and also help them once they start dropping antlers. Help them start growing everything back. It's just good to keep your deer healthy. So that's all the partners. All right, and you guys know every episode I always bring it up. If you don't know Jesus has been working his butt off in my life and in other people's lives. I explained something to one of my buddies today that when you give your life to, because he asked me, he's like, I've been going to church more, I've been doing this, I've been doing that, and my life's gotten harder. And I was like, dude, that's honestly in the beginning, that's how it works. If you're living your life the way that Satan wants you to, he's not going to bother you, right? But you're not following Jesus the way that, or let me put it this way. You're not following Jesus as closely as you probably should. Right. And this is not me pushing it down anyone's throat. I'm just, for the people who are believers who put their faith in Christ, this is something that if you're struggling with it, kind of had the revelation of it today. If you are trying your best to follow Jesus as closely as possible and live your life the way that he wants you to, or I shouldn't even say it that way, but just basically live your life the best way you can based off of Jesus's teachings and putting your faith in him, dude, that's when the real fight begins. Okay. A lot of bad things happened at the end of 2024 for us. We are still kind of dealing with that, but every single day when I get up, I know that I've got the King of Kings at my, he's got my back. Like, he's there with me. He's with, you all the way, every step. So when things get harder, it definitely sucks. It's okay to get mad. It's okay to be stressed, but at the end of it, you need to just give it over to him and he will handle it. Okay. It's just a test. That's all it is. So that's kind of my preacher moment. If you don't know, if you haven't really given Jesus a thought, I highly recommend you do. It it it's awesome. It is. I'm almost speechless about how great it is to know that I've got him in my corner. So anyway, church session is over, guys. We are going to get Mr. Michael Pitts on here. It's going to be a really good episode, and I'm very excited. I have been looking forward to this since we scheduled it. So enough blabbing. Let's get started with Michael Pitts. So you read the title. You know who's the guest for this episode. He needs no introduction, but this man's probably got the best mustache in the business. We got Mr. Michael Pitts from REALTREE on today. Dude, I thank you for coming on, first off.
Oh, it's no problem at all, man. I enjoy doing these kind of things. So
well, and like so I first heard about you on Working Class Bowhunter years ago. And I was like, who's this Michael Pitts guy? So I looked you up and I was laughing for like 2 hours straight.
Yeah.
The comedy side of what you've done with REALTREE is amazing. And then I see the deer that you killed and I'm like, holy crap, dude.
We get after it from all angles, comedy, hunting, whatever you want.
Dude, it's amazing. Like what you guys have done with, or I guess what you've been able to do with REALTREE and how far, because REALTREE was actually my introduction to, like, I'm not going to say the hunting side of things because my uncle hunted when I was a kid. And so I've always been into it. Yep. But REALTREE was my first camo that I used. And then I eventually switched over to Osseo and partnered up with them. But REALTREE has always held a special place in my heart. So to be able to get you on, this is like, if I start fangirling, just forgive me for it, okay? I mean, I put it at the same level. I had Waddell on last year, and it was the same feeling. I'm like, dude, am I gonna say something stupid? And I was still relatively new into this, right?
That's
so Waddy's sitting there, and he's acting like literally he gets on there, and it's like I've known the dude my entire life.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And like,
what?
It's crazy how like down to earth you guys are.
Oh yeah. He sent me a text a minute ago there at the ATA show, and he was laughing about some picture of us at the ATA show. He was poking fun at me. So, yeah, he's constantly just everyday person. Really, really good guy.
Oh yeah, 100%. But this is your episode, so I want to dive into everything Michael Pitts. I watched your video on REALTREE of who is Michael Pitts,
right?
And that I knew you were a firefighter, but actually getting to see you at the station and do all that stuff it hit close to home because my grandfather was a fire captain and my uncle just now went from being a fire chief to like a arson inspector.
Yes.
And so like it's very close to home for me. So I mean, how did you get into the firefighting side of things?
Basically, I had a good friend that was a fireman, and just kind of hanging out through there, getting to see everything, how it worked, was kind of what got me interested. I actually got my basic volunteer certification while I was still in high school. There was a volunteer department about 30 miles down the road that was doing weekend classes. So it fit good with my schedule in school and all. So I actually got certified, to go into structural fires and all that kind of stuff when I was still in high school. You got to be 18 before you can do anything. So pretty much second I hit 18, I was full bore. And then it kind of rolled into when I was in college, I was part-time and volunteer. And the second I got out of college, I went full-time. And been there ever since.
Dude, that is awesome. It's really rare to be able to get somebody on here that is in the hunting industry and also is like doing the coolest job, right?
Well, like one good thing about the fire service is it gives you a lot of time off because most of your places around here work a 24-48 schedule. It means every third day you go in and work a 24-hour shift. So you get a lot of time off. And if you take a vacation day, that gives you 5 straight days off. So you get a lot of time to spend hunting, fishing, all that kind of stuff. That is, if you're not recovering from a bad shift or whatever, which we all have from time to time, and you've pretty much got to use those 2 days to recover. But most of the time you get a decent amount of sleep and that kind of stuff and can function normally on your days off, because anybody that knows a fireman knows we all have 2 or 3 jobs.
Yep.
The fact that, the pay is where it should be for the fire department. So you've got to get, some supplemental income, as well as it gives you something to do on your days off to where you're not so bored or whatnot. But my problem is I've got way too many hobbies. So I'm not ever searching for something to do. There's always something to do. So that's one good thing about having too many hobbies. I'll never be at home twiddling my thumbs.
Yep, keeps you busy.
I'm working on my new Hoyt when you just buzzed in. So
nice.
I was
what are you shooting this year? You running the RX-9 or the AX2?
RX-9 Ultra. I've always shot the Ultra. I like a little longer axle because I shoot some tournaments back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So the pointability and the stability of the bow work really good for me. And they're a little more forgiving. And I need all the forgiveness I can get because I get buck fever like no other. So I've got to have something to help me out a little bit.
Yeah. Now I got to ask you, do you believe in doe fever?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
Actually, you can ask anybody I know. I have just as much fun shooting does as I do, hunting a big buck or whatever. In fact, a lot of times when you tag out, it's kind of a little bit of a relief because you get to sit back and have a little fun and get after it. And, if you can kill one of the alpha does, you can kill anything in the United States pretty much, especially in the Southeast if you can alpha doe. So you've got credibility.
I have a funny story for you. It's not really, honestly, it's not funny at all if you look at it for what it is. But I went hunting last night, and I have this spot. It's 1 acre, and there's always does there, right?
Right.
There's this one specific doe that out of all of them, she is able to pick me out of the tree no matter what tree I'm in. Doesn't matter how high I am. If I'm hunting, on the back of the tree and kind of saddle hunting, it doesn't matter. She always knows.
Yeah.
Well, last night this deer walks in and she's got 2 little yearlings walking in front of her and she's coming down because it's over a power line. So I can watch where they're coming from. Watch this doe come walking down the power line. And I'm like, I knew who it was instantly because she stops right before she gets in like my best shooting lane. And she kind of puts her neck back and she looks around the tree and she's got her ears just right to me. And I'm like, I didn't even move. I'm like, how do you know? So
it's crazy like that. And some of them have it's weird how they can zone in on you. We had one like that years ago out at our farm, and she came in and she'd blow the whole field. There'd be 12 deer. She'd come in and blow the field. And it used to frustrate me so bad because wind direction was perfect and she never even would look at you. She just got out there and got that uneasy feeling and would just, and my mind starts working going, I wonder if she does this when I'm not here.
Yeah.
Wonder if this is just her nature or if she is, because there's no way she smelled me. She hadn't even looked in my direction. So how does she know I'm here? But she would get agitated and just start stomping and blow and the whole field would leave. And I used to threaten, that was back, I hadn't touched a rifle in probably like 15 years at that time. And I was like, I'm about to break a rifle out and get rid of her. She's ruining a lot of good hunting.
Dude, I'm going to tell you the end of this story. I should have done that. So she does this, right? She sees me and she blows. So they run off. But the 2 little ones don't go that far. They only go like 20, 30 yards. And I'm like, okay, I haven't moved yet.
Right.
So I'm just standing there and I see the 2 little ones come walking in. So I'd get my bow off the hanger and I clip on and I'm like ready because I know she's going to come back. Sure enough, a couple minutes go by and she comes walking back down, kind of easy, a little skittish, but not too bad. Same exact thing. But the way it's set up is in the tree I'm in, I've got a pine tree to my left, and that's my draw point. When their head goes behind that pine tree, that's when I'm drawing back. And so I do that because she goes behind the pine tree and she turns back around. And now I'm at full draw. Okay. So I'm like anchored, ready to go, just waiting. And she goes around the pine tree and I'm like, oh, come on. And then so I kind of go a little bit to the left. Not broadside, quarter to slightly. And her back end, if you think of like a U, right? It's kind of like that. Now, I don't like quarter 2 shots. I never
Yeah.
have. But
Mhm.
I'm like, I need to kill this deer because I've only killed one doe. I've been super picky this year.
Right.
It's been a struggle, right?
Right. Right.
And so I'm like, I need to kill something.
Uh-huh.
So it's like 22, 25 yards, something like that. And I just let it go.
Uh-huh.
Perfect flight. Looks like I double lung. And I was shooting the beast head because I've been testing those out this year.
Yeah.
And I killed one deer with one earlier this year and she died in 30 seconds. So in my mind, if I think I double lunged her, then
Right.
she should be dead up on top of the power line, right?
Uh-huh.
So I get down, look at the arrow. I actually have it over there. I cleaned it off, but it's
Uh-huh.
bright red. The thing I didn't notice is there's white hair on it.
Huh.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh, she's done. So I
Yeah.
look up, I spent a whole hour because I had to go pick my daughter up. So I was kind of constrained on time. But I
Yeah.
spent a whole hour, walked 500 yards in a full circle in the dark, never found her.
Wow. Good blood.
That's the crazy part. So there was good blood where the arrow was laying
Yeah.
when I hit her.
Uh-huh.
None after that.
That's weird.
I think I'd one lunged and gut shot her because the sound was a little bit off,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So weird thing, man. Weird thing.
Yeah, and those front shoulders, there's that little ball joint in there that, if you connect with it in their front shoulder, it can be really bad. But there's arguments out there on the front shoulder shot, and I agree with both sides of it, depending on the setup.
Yeah.
If you're running a heavy arrow, 70 pounds, that sort of thing, and you're getting a lot of kinetic energy and penetration, I've got no problem with trying to run it through that one shoulder. I've done it a lot, and it works very well. You can usually have no problem with that one front shoulder because if they're quartering, you're just going to be contending with that one shoulder. You're not going to hit that offside shoulder. So basically, all you got to do is defeat that one shoulder and get in the vital cavity, and you're good to go. And with today's technology and arrows and bows, you can do that a lot easier now than you could in the past.
Yeah.
I recommend a kid with 40 pounds on his bow or whatever do that? Absolutely not.
Yeah. No.
So you got to have the right setup to be able to take that shot. And a lot of people will crucify you for taking a shot like that. I'm not scared of it with the equipment I shoot. But yeah, if you're shooting, some equipment, low poundage or a lighter arrow or something of that nature, I would be a little skeptical of it. But
well, I've been racking my brain on it, man, because like it looked, because I shoot lighted Nox, it looked like a full pass through. I mean, you could see the arrow. I'll send you a photo of what the arrow looked like right when I walked to it, and I really was shocked that I didn't find her because I walked, 200 yards up, about 100 yards to my left, 200 back. It might actually, dude, it might have been 1,000 yards that I walked because I did that 3 times.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those weird things where it's like, I hate it because I don't like wounding animals, but at the same time, that's the doe that always pegged me out.
That's right.
If she's dead, she's gone. So,
mission accomplished.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know. It was a crazy night. But so how did you get? So we have a mutual friend in T-Bone.
Yes.
I was watching that Who is Michael Pitt's video, and you had mentioned his name in that. Can you kind of give us like, or I guess give the listeners a little bit of background on how you got on REALTREE and involved with T-Bone and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It started with T-Bone. We talked about a little bit earlier how firemen pretty much have a 7-second job. So my second job to begin with, I was farming. And Travis owned his own shop in Hogansville. And he had somebody quit him. And I had messed a little bit with my own archery stuff in the early days, mainly just flexion arrows, that sort of thing. Not really any kind of, excessive maintenance or anything, just nitpicky stuff. And he knew that. He knew I had an interest in it. So when that guy quit him, he said, man, would you be interested in coming to work here? And I said, well, shoot, get me a price up, we'll talk. And so we were talking a few days later, and he said, hey, I'll give you this. And it was $2 an hour more than I was making at the farm. and I would get to sit in air conditioning and heat. So, hey, it sounded like a winter to me. So I went
Yeah.
and Travis was doing all of REALTREE's archery work at the time and starting to hunt with them and that sort of thing. So when I was working with him, I kind of just, got to knowing everybody, and he had went to Bone Collector, and I started getting more active with REALTREE, and it just grew to what it is today. So pretty much wrenching on bows is where, is how I got into everything, was wrenching on bows for Travis. And then one thing led to another. They started out using me. I don't know if you remember all the comedy videos that used to be on the Monster Bucks videos.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the guys that got shot up by a paintball. They
Yep.
they just, whoo, it was brutal. I mean, I looked like a cheetah when we got done with that episode because I had bruises all over me where the balls.
Oh man.
Was
it worth it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They had me in a wrestling singlet one time out there acting a fool. So, I was a test dummy in the earlier days, and year after year after year, it grew and evolved to what it is today. So, yeah, but the start of it was just wrenching on bows for T-Bone. So
that's wild, man. Yeah, T-Bone
got in it.
T-Bone when I first, because he was like, because I started the podcast in 2022. And yeah. I think I had T-Bone as like the 10th guest because I kept blowing him up. I'm like, dude, I'm starting to build my own arrows. Please come on the podcast. I want to talk to you about it. Now he comes on once a year. Yeah. And that dude's knowledge on just everything archery.
Oh, he's guru.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can sit there and just listen to him, and it looks like I'm zoned out because I'll probably just, mouth slack, drool coming out, my eyes are just glazed over, but I'm taking in everything he's saying. Right. And it's just, it's crazy what the dude knows. So, I mean, I'm assuming he, because I don't know if like when you started wrenching on bows with him, if you had like extreme amounts of knowledge with this stuff, or was he like an integral part of that as well?
No, he was part of that as well. I was just doing the basics, fletching arrows, maybe bolting a sight on or whatever. I just tinkered a little bit, but as far as string rebuilds and, all that kind of stuff, testing and tuning and I didn't do any of that. I was basically just your shade tree kind of bow mechanic, kind of just piddling with what I could. I didn't have a press or any of that kind of stuff. I just kind of messed around with what I could. And, I didn't go in depth to it, but he knew I had an interest in it because I used to fletch my own arrows and that sort of stuff and enjoyed doing that. So he knew I would be interested in learning more probably. And he threw that question out there and I thought about it. It's more money and all that kind of stuff. Get to sit around, build bows, talk about hunting all day and get paid for it. So it was a slam dunk for me. So I started doing that and just been wrenching on them ever since.
Yeah, dude. I feel like it's kind of like a form of therapy, Like if you've had a rough day, like say you had a rough day at the firehouse and you come home and you've got, the new RX9 that needs to get tuned or something. You can sit there and just play with it and completely forget about everything else.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I love it. So how are you liking that RX9?
I hadn't spent a whole lot of time with it yet. I was just now, starting to mess with it a little bit because the way everything worked out this year, I was tagged out and done traveling by the time I got mine in. So I was a little bit behind, as far as getting everything set up. So being I was tagged out, I was really in no rush to get it set up and operational for this little tail end of the season.
Yeah.
So just kind of been slowly piddling with it, but I was just putting the rest on and getting some of that stuff, getting the timing cord laced in, the peep in, and the draw cycle feels good. The only difference I really see in feel is the RX8 was kind of like low poundage and it built up when you went back. This one's got a lot of the poundage right off the bat of the draw, which I like that.
Yeah.
Very consistent in draw all the way back. and it doesn't have any harsh, cam roll or anything like that in it. It's very consistent, but it is preloaded on the front side, it seems like, versus a gradual climb. But the good thing I like about the Ultra is it's about 10 feet a second faster now than they have been in the past. Because typically, when you go longer axle to axle and longer brace height, you're going to lose speed. So let's just say your RX9 shot at 340. Let's just say the Ultra was going to shoot at 330. Well, now they've pulled that Ultra up to almost the speed of the regular RX9.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you had the RX8, it was a little bit slower when you got in the Ultras, as to where this year with the nines, not so much. They really picked the speed up in the Ultra.
Yeah, I had
I think I enjoy it a lot, but I just hadn't spent a whole lot of time with it.
Yeah. Well, see, that's so like with Hoyts, I've shot a handful of them, and that's one thing I have noticed with them is, at least in my personal feel, that the front end is always stiffer compared to like, my bareback here. It's kind of stiff, light,
Correct.
and in the very back end it drops in, and that's
that rollover.
Yeah. And so I had Evan Williams from Hoyt come on a couple of weeks ago. And really good episode, like really, really good episode. And
he's very, very knowledgeable.
Oh, dude. Yeah. It was the longest episode I've ever done. It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
And he could have kept going
through it.
Yeah. And so we were talking about that. We were talking about his season, but I was really interested when these new bows came out with Hoyt, because I'm not like a big speed freak. If I'm at like 270, 280, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Right. I went from my bow last year was a single cam bear, and I was shooting high 230s with a 450 grain arrow.
Yeah. Yeah. When you go to a single cam, you're gonna
lose speed. So I upgraded and got the Whitetail Max that they came out with last year, and now I'm at like 280, and I love it. But I started seeing the Hoyts, and Josh Jones was doing testing on it, and he was doing like he was talking about the new cam system and how they do the different mods, which I really like. That's awesome. And then I think it was one of the fastest bows he shot. It was like 2 foot a second off what it was rated for. And me and T-Bone, last time he was on, we had this conversation where it's like all these companies are coming out. I saw a few today from ATA. It's like, oh, IBO is 352. And I'm like, there's no way. And if there is a way, that bow is probably so stiff, it's not comfortable to shoot.
Correct.
And that's what I was curious about the Hoyts. And I asked Evan about it. I'm glad you touched on it. Because, I haven't gotten a shot one yet or shoot one yet. Yeah. So I'm planning on going to the shop next week and shooting that and a couple of the new primes. Because I got Brian Anderson coming on in a couple of weeks. And I really want to know what I'm feeling and what I'm talking about, rather than just being like, hey, so tell me about G5 Megameat, and tell me, or not even Megameat, just all the broadheads. Tell me about the new prime form. I haven't shot the new bow, but what's it about? So
exactly. I think that 9's probably going to be my most favorite bow ever. It seems like every year Hoyt puts my most favorite bow ever in my hand. I mean, they just, it's one of those deals to where you sit there and think sometimes, what in the world can they come up with next? There's no way they can make this any better. So, I really loved the RX8, but the only problem I've always fought between like the Ultra and the regular model is the speed, because you gain 10 feet a second, pretty much by going to the shorter bow versus the longer bow. So I was always on the shorter side, and I got little T-Rex arms. So my draw length is only 28. So I'm losing 20 feet per second off of an IBO spec out of the box. I'm behind the curve, and I like to keep my speed between, 270 and 290, which I'm usually in the 70s because I shoot a pretty heavy arrow. I load the tip up with, a little bit of weight, to get that FOC where I want it. and that sort of thing. So my arrows end up a little bit on the heavier side. So, but everything, everything this year I think is going to come together because they've got that ultra firing a lot faster. So I should gain, once I put everything through the chronograph and get my setup right and where I want it, I should be about 10 feet a second faster this year than I was last year, which will help. And I've talked to these guys that are good with math and all that stuff. I'm not, but they'll even tell you if the deer's going to jump your string at 250 feet a second, he's going to do it at 300. They say there's not enough leeway in there to get away from a deer jumping the string. They say if he's going to jump your string, it doesn't matter how fast your bow is, they're going to jump your string regardless. But it's still a peace of mind, and it's up here a lot of times. A lot of stuff comes from up here as far as confidence goes.
Yep.
And even though I'm being told it doesn't make a difference if it's 250 or 300, they're still going to jump your string. It's still up here. I want to be a little bit faster than where I'm at. But as long as I can get over that 270 mark, I'm fine, which I've never had a Hoyt bow that hadn't done that. And this year, I know it's not because this RS9 Ultra is so much faster than the ones in the past. So I am looking forward to spending some time with it out in the field, getting everything where I want it and putting some time in the field with it to see. I'm hoping I can get there around 280. Should be able to, but we'll see.
I mean, if my bow, so my draw length's like 27, let's say just 27 and a half.
Right.
And I'm shooting a 455 grain arrow, I think. That's 70. If I'm hitting 280 with that, you have nothing to worry about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're good. That is one thing about Hoyt, man, that I have always noticed with them is their speeds are insane. Are you? Huh?
They're legit.
For sure.
They'll do it. It's to where some other companies I've shot, and a lot of people try to sneak in a little bit longer draw to get that feet per second up there, and they'll say, 28 inches, we're firing this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, it's really shooting at about 28 3/4.
Yeah. Do you watch
about 3/4 of an inch long or whatever?
Oh yeah. Do you watch Josh Jones videos?
I have not.
You haven't? Okay. You know who he is though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you watch that, he started some new thing this year, or I guess last year now that we're in 2025, but he his new, I guess, testing method is he'll start off at 30 and he shoots 350, 450, and 650. And then he'll drop it down to 28 and he'll do 450 and 650. And so I'm happy he's doing that because me being so close to that, I can kind of get a rough idea. Like if, say the Hoyt shooting a 450 grain arrow at 28 inches at 295, I know that if I drop it down half an inch, that's the weight that I shoot. So it'll be 285.
Right.
Or 290, So it is cool to do that. I mean, are you shooting 80 pounds?
No, I don't dip into the 80-pound deal.
You want to go all the way up to Cam Haynes level and do 90, don't you?
No.
I'm just kidding. I don't know how he does that, man.
I run, a 70-pounder maxed out, which Hoyt the past few years has been coming in at about 72. They're a little hot, which is perfect for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that range, and I like for my bow to be bottomed out as far as poundage because you're going to get the best functionality, if that's even a word, out of the bow with it bottomed out. And just like a lot of people will say, you want to be on the longest draw length if your bow has adjustable cams.
Mm-hmm.
The longest draw length is going to be your truest, most efficient setting. So, like I luck out with my bows. 28 is typically in the ultra has been the longest spot on that cam, which means I'm getting the most efficiency out of that cam. Is to where if I'd have had it to 27, I would lose a little efficiency because that module isn't all the way back to where I'm getting, That's why you'll see Hoyt has gone to only 2 inches of adjustability in their bows this year. It's because that makes them function better. The more adjustments you start adding into everything, the bow gets sloppier.
Yep.
So it's a double-edged sword. You want the adjustability to fit the most amount of people or customers, but yet you're getting a sloppy bow doing that, is to where if you shrink it down, you might have to go from bow to bow or module to module a little more, but you're going to make the bow a lot more efficient for the customer. So that makes any sense to you. That's, one of a lot of your youth bows now are, they'll go from 18 inches of draw all the way to 30 inches of draw, which is great for them. But once, you get into a full adult bow, you want that sucker firing as hard as it can. And there are little tricks of the trade like that. I can't change my draw and make it turn it in. Let's say 29's the last peg or the longest it will go. And if I'm 28, I'm not going to put it on 29 just to get the efficiency, because then I'm going to end up with bad habits and all. So it just lucked out with me that 28 on those ultras was that, the longest mark. So I was getting the most efficiency out of everything. So
I think they maybe made it for you, Fitz.
No, they didn't make it for me. Extension to me.
Well, man, I want to talk about your season, because you had a hell of a season. I remember seeing you post both bucks, and I was just like, this dude's killing it. So from opening day to now, what was your season like?
It was really good this year. I did not travel as much this year. So I got to focus a lot, around here in Georgia. So I'd put my work in all summer, and that first deer I killed, I didn't realize he was what he was. I had him at, low 50s because I'd been watching him all summer. He was a frequent flyer and a homebody. And so, I was getting pictures of him every day and pretty much had him pegged. And we went in there, and I was actually hunting another deer opening weekend, and that ended up not going so well. So we went to hunt that other deer that was up there. And our first sit up there, he shows up. Well, he comes out early, and I put glasses on him, and he turns around and he kind of goes back in the woods. He was a couple of 100 yards off. And so I was like, well, dang. But I was pretty confident he'd show back up. And then he shows back up about 30 minutes before dark and comes out, and my jaw just dropped. I was like, good gosh, I did not realize this deer was that big. So anyhow, he comes in, and I put a little bad shot. I pushed my shot about 6 inches back of where I wanted. And I watched him go off. He didn't go off but about 80 yards and laid down. So I waited till super late after it was dark. Me and the cameraman just got down and eased out of there. And I said, I feel a lot better just coming back in the morning. We came back in the morning, he wasn't there. And so I freaked out a little bit because I thought he was going to be laying there. He was hit hard and hurt,
What broadhead were you using?
I was using the dead meat, and I have more confidence in that broadhead than anything on the market today.
Even more than the mega meat?
I like the dead meat more just from a penetration standpoint.
Got it.
Because it's 1.5 inches and your mega meat's 2 inches. So you're going to get more penetration out of the 1.5 inches because you're not having to push near as much blade through that animal. And an exit hole is so important in the archery world as far as picking up on that blood trail and being able to find your animal. Now, everybody I know that has shot the mega meat absolutely loves it. And with a white tail, I don't think you'll ever have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Would I go into an elk with it? Maybe not. Because you're talking about a big old rib cage you're fighting right there. So I stick with the dead meat just because, I was shooting the what did they call it before it was the dead meat?
Was it the
T3?
T3?
T3.
Yeah.
Well, I was shooting that, so I was familiar with the side, which with that broadhead, and going away from those spider clips was a home run because now they've got that kind of ball and socket, so it makes it a lot more secure. You don't get the rattle or the mechanical issues you had with the other one. But I've been shooting that head for a long time, even back previous to the T3 when it was like the T10s and all that. G5 just was a great product, so I've been shooting them for a while. But yeah, I like the dead meat just from a penetration standpoint of getting that exit hole so I can get a good blood trail and find the animal quick. And those broadheads have saved me a lot. I mean, it saved me on that deer because I placed it 6 inches back, which I aim a little bit back off the shoulder anyhow because I want to try to center both those lungs. I'm not tucked in tight like for a heart shot, a lot. So I ease back a little bit and it gives me more room for error on either side. And but that dead meat, they do so much damage. They function good every time. They fly like a field tip, and they're just great. But when I thought that deer was going to be laying there the next morning, when I came in there, he wasn't. So anyhow, we ended up. I got a friend close by. He's got some of the best dogs I've ever seen in my life, and we went down in there and got on him pretty quick and found him. And when I put my hands on him, he's just one of those deer you got to see in person. Video pictures don't do him any justice, but he's the biggest deer I've ever killed. So
what is score?
175.
Oh, Jesus.
So he don't look it in videos. Like I said, I had him at a low 50s deer from pictures. I watched him all summer. I watched him from when he first started growing his antlers to when he fully developed. So I knew him well, and I was like, he's going to be a low 50s solid deer. And then when I walked up to him and put my hands on him, it was just, it was just like, oh my God, never knew he was, this type of deer. And
gosh,
dude. Yeah,
that's like
it was shocking. I still didn't even believe he was as big as he was. We went back to camp. We went to REALTREE's cooler. They had some friends in town, and so we went over there and met up with them at their cooler, which our land borders, the land I hunt borders REALTREE's Rocky Branch side. So back and forth all the time between coolers and this and that. We got over there and JJ said, hey, you want me to score it? And I said, yeah, you can score it if you want to or whatever. And I was over here talking with somebody else, and he said, come over here and look at this. And so I came over there, and he said, guess what you think he scores? And I said, I think low to mid 50s, somewhere right there. And then they pulled out the number, and I was like, there ain't no way. So they scored him again and came up with the same figure, but he is a lot bigger than he looks on video or picture wise. But my season was made right there. You kill a deer like that in Georgia, it didn't matter if I didn't kill anything the rest of the year. I still, would have been happy as all get out.
Yeah. I mean, I've got buddies that live out of state, man, that, because Seek one, especially now that they're with REALTREE, right, which I think is a perfect fit. I grew up 20 minutes from where those guys were hunting over in Gwinnett County. And so I never knew we even had deer like that, because I'm originally from Illinois. So growing up, being there till I was 6, me and my dad used to go watch deer in the field all the time. And I'd see these giant deer, right? So I come down here, and I'm not seeing nothing like that.
Different story.
Yeah. And so I start watching Lee and them, and I'm like, oh, I was like, we got 200s here. And, then sort of snowballing into like the stuff, that you guys have done in Bone Collector, which I watched REALTREE and Bone Collector as a kid, but I didn't know anything. Right. And people out of state, my buddies that live in like Michigan and stuff, they're like, oh man, you guys got big deer down there. I'm like, honestly, the biggest deer I have on camera this year, maybe 130, maybe. Like that to me is like a Midwestern 150, So to kill a 170-inch deer or 175-inch deer is just unbelievable. I mean,
And that land out there is so unique because all that land used to be Callaway land back in the day. And that land that Jeff and Bill and all of them have out there used to be under Callaway, and they had basically a hunting club called Rocky Branch out there, and you could buy hunts and hunt out there. They did all that kind of stuff. So that land has been managed for, gosh, I'd hate to say how long, 40 years or whatever. It's been strictly managed.
Yeah.
And that's how you have those deer out there. Now, if it was broken up into a bunch of little pieces and you had hunting clubs in there, it'd be like anywhere else in Georgia. But the big plus out in that area is that land's been managed for so long, and it's strictly managed. So that's why you got the big deer in that little pocket out there. So
yeah. Is that where Tyler killed his 190s buck a couple years back?
Okay. Actually, that deer was running over on us too.
Oh, dude.
Tyler called me and he was like, man, let's set up a little deal to where we both hunt him from both properties.
That's so cool, man.
Film the whole series. And I said, Tyler, that's a deer that gets Michael Pitts run off from this hunt. I said, I'm not asking to go over there and shoot that deer because he was in an area I didn't really hunt. I've got a few areas I hunt on that farm, and I kind of just stick to my areas and all. And like that deer that I killed this year showed up in there, so the property manager was okay with me hunting him. But if I got out of my little areas and started chasing deer people were seeing that were 190 inches, it might have gotten a little hairy.
I will say, I don't think Tyler knew what he was offering you, Pitts.
Yes, awesome. I was like, no, I better stay away from that. But yeah, Tyler ended up killing that deer. And he was not actually, I think he's the same genetics of that second deer I killed this year.
Really?
Very similar in rack and body structure and all. They were smaller bodies because, believe it or not, that deer that had that big rack had a very small body. He would throw you off. And it was kind of the same way with this deer I killed this year. He didn't have near the rack that the other one did, but you could tell it was same genetics kind of.
Well, let's get into that second deer then, man, because that, I mean, just to like be tagged out, in my opinion, because I've only done it once, and it was the greatest feeling ever, right?
Yeah. So actually, if you go back and watch the footage of me killing the first deer, we video that deer that I killed second in that same footage. He was I had 3 deer with over 140 inches within 30 yards of me at one time.
I mean, if you need help getting rid of a few, man, you got my number.
I had the big one I killed, the second one I killed, and there was a 10-pointer that was off to our right that we never videoed because, I mean, we were zoned in over here. But he was a big old mature buck. He was a wide, short tined buck. I mean, beautiful, beautiful deer. It was very, very uneasy having that many deer around you of that stage. I was freaking out. I mean, I'll go on and tell you, I get buck fever anyhow.
Yeah.
Throw 340-inch deer standing. Well, they were probably one of them was about 40 yards off, but they were all within shooting distance. So I was a nervous wreck. But yeah, he was actually in that video because he was in the field at the same time. But I had actually let that second deer walk several times.
Really?
Because I was worried about the age of him. I was worried he was a 4.5-year-old deer, which there's nothing wrong with shooting a 4.5-year-old deer. We try to let them get to 5.5 minimum. But I started looking at some pictures with some friends, and his pictures last year, his body and his rack was the same size as this year. That's telling me something's a little off right there, and maybe he just got a small body or whatever. Yeah. So I'm looking at some things, and I said, well, I might give him a go then. I said, y'all are making some good points, and I agree with them. And, hey, if he's 4.5, he's 4.5. I enjoyed it. I enjoy the deer. I'm fine with it. So I ended up going after him, and I was self-filming that night. Ended up, we didn't have enough cameramen. So Daniel asked me, he said, would you mind self-filming? I was like, no, I don't mind at all. So I packed up my camera gear and get up there. Well, he comes out like an hour before dark, and he starts walking towards me, and he was beelining me. So I went ahead and grabbed my bow to get ready, and I'm filming with my right hand. I got my bow just kind of clutched in my left hand, and then he just stalls out and lays down. I'm like, he's facing me at about 100 yards where he stalled out, so I can't make much movement or whatever. I wanted to hang my bow up and give a little break off his left shoulder and arm, but I was like, as soon as I do, he'll peg me. So anyhow, I sit there and wait him out, and he finally gets back up about 15 minutes later and starts coming on in. So I had literally been holding my bow in my left hand for almost an hour by the time I take the shot. So my left shoulder is just killing me. I'm like, how am I going to make this shot? So how he comes in, and I mean, he does everything perfect, and I get the camera ready, and I hit him a little back too. My shots this year were not great, and but I saw him crash. So I thought I saw him crash. I was pretty sure I saw him crash. So we kind of went down in there and found him real quick. He was right where I saw him, thought I saw him, flip over and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of got lucky. And that goes back to your broadheads a lot too, because you can make these marginal shots with these good broadheads and still recover your animal.
Yeah. I mean, to that point,
with a regular fixed blade broadhead, 1.125" cut or whatever, I don't know if I find those two deer I shot this year, because the shot placement was not great on either one of them.
Yeah.
I'm usually pretty on target with that kind of stuff, but this year, for some reason, I was drifting off a little bit. And so going back to the broadheads, that saves you at the end of the day a lot of the time.
I mean, to that point, like, I can talk broadheads all day long, right? So I used to shoot the Mega Meat religiously.
Yes.
And I wanted to play around last year, so I shot the Q80 Exodus.
It's a good fixed blade.
Great fixed blade. But I shot a doe that is still alive that my wife named Mary because she's the holy doe.
Yeah.
And what happened was, when I shot her, I hit shoulder and it broke my arrow. And so I was like, okay. I went back the next day, completely changed my setup, changed arrows, changed broadheads, everything. And I had it set up where I could do that, right? Like, same speeds and stuff. I just went to a different brand. Because I had no affiliations with anybody at that time. And so I was shooting a Mega Meat, and it was the same exact broadhead that I shot this buck back here with the year before, right? The thing I didn't do was I didn't change the little retention collar.
Correct. From red to blue?
No, like from the one that I'd used to a new one.
Oh, okay. I got it. So it was a little blade popped.
That's exactly what happened. I drew back on a doe shot, and I watched the arrow go straight and then and gut shot. Now, that was my first gut shot on a deer ever. And I've always said I'll never gut shoot a deer. Well, I did.
It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I promise you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I've made, honestly, some not questionable, but I'm in the same boat. My shots this year have not been great. I've made one good shot. But to the point of the broadhead is that Mega Meat, no joke, dude. When it went through those guts, the hole was that big.
Correct.
And I found her the next morning. Yeah. And so.
Absolutely. And the guy I talked about earlier that I got to track that first deer, he said, if you pouch shoot one accidentally, he said, let it lay. Don't even look for it. Let it lay. And if you get a dog in there, you'll find them 99% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
He said, with today's technology and these good broadheads, if you slip up and make a bad shot, he said, I would rather go look for a deer that had been shot through the guts than anything in the world. He said, because He said, if you leave that deer alone, see, the problem is everybody jumps down and rushes in there and tries to find it, and they bump him in the next county within an hour. So, his whole, basically was just, if you think you made a bad shot, get the heck out of there. Don't bother the animal. Let him lay till the next morning. It's going to be a rough night, no sleep. We've all been there. But, that's the best thing you can do. And he said that animal will bed up and, and you'll be able to harvest it. So
yeah,
it's one of those deals to where I've learned, and I'm even overcautious nowadays, because I used to be the guy that scaled down the tree as quick as I could, running over there to try to find it or whatever.
getting on the tree like a squirrel.
I was not finding the animal, and I'm like, good gracious. And then, after watching and listening to people and talking to people, and they said, look, just get out of there. Just back out. You'll be fine. Go back the next morning. Your chances will be 10 times better. And since I've been doing that, I've about recovered every animal, I've made a bad shot on. So
yeah,
there's a lot to it. It stinks having to walk out of there, but it's the best thing as far as recovering your animal.
Yeah, and then you're not going 1,000 yards walking 3 circles like I did yesterday. So it happens, man. So wrapping up on the second buck.
Yeah.
You found him. What did he score?
Well, this is part of the problem with him. He had an interior point last year that came off the inside of his beam out into the back. That was a unique point. And this year, I never had him with that point on there. So I was like, maybe he just didn't grow it this year. Well, it was broken off. It was broken off, I guess, earlier in the velvet or whatever. I don't know when it was broke, but it was there because it's broke off, and he was missing a brow. I can't remember if it was his left or right brow. But anyhow, he was missing a brow on that point. With those, he was 146. But if he had both those, he would have been upper 50s deer.
That's insane, dude. Y'all's farms.
Both of them was out of the same stand. I mean, both of them out of the same stand. I literally all year have not hunted but 3 stands on that place.
Is REALTREE ever gonna have like a local guy raffle to come hunt over there? Because
they do that periodically. People, yeah, they do a raffle. They do a couple of raffles actually every year to where people come out there at REALTREE Farms, and it just depends on who the sponsor is or whatever as far as to where it's promoted. Like I saw, let's see, this year I know OnX is doing a raffle for a hunt with Austin Riley on REALTREE Farms.
Oh wow.
That's a double dose right there. You get to hunt with Austin and at REALTREE Farms.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still running that or not as far as registration. I know they were back during the summer, but I don't know if it's still open or not. But yeah. They do quite a bit. They raffle off hunts there.
That would just be so cool, man, to like honestly going to hunt there would be a bonus, but even get to hang out with like Tyler, because the thing is you guys only live, well, I don't know where Tyler and them live, but you're in West Point, right?
Yeah, I'm in West Point, and Columbus is not but about 30 miles from me. So it's right down the road, and the farm's kind of in between me and them where they live, and it's kind of in between West Point and Columbus.
Yeah.
So, it's in a convenient area, so
well, and it'd just be fun to like, because I don't live that far from you guys.
Correct.
And I want to, the plan is to eventually get more in-person stuff done, right? So get in like you over here in person, or Tyler or Bill. I know they're super busy, but
we can set something up and we can go to the office one day or whatever.
Dude, I would. You want to talk about fangirling? Dude, I'm telling you that I messed up. I'm gonna tell you a story, okay? And I don't think I've actually ever told this story on the podcast, but I made a big mistake a year ago, 2 years ago. So the Cineground Outdoors guys, right? Okay. Yeah. So I've gotten to be buddies with them. They actually were my link to really getting to know T-Bone and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So 2 summers ago, they invited me over to their farm to help put up stands and all this other stuff, right? It's the day, I think it was the day after 4th of July or around that time frame, right?
Yeah.
And I was gonna go. I was all down. I was hyped. And the thing that I messed it up because I didn't go. And the reason is because we went to a family party that night to celebrate 4th of July.
Right.
And this was before I like got really involved in my faith and stuff. So let's just say I wasn't making the best decisions.
Right.
And I may have had a little bit too much of the sauce. And ever since then, I'm like, dude, it's one of the biggest regrets I have is letting that happen. And so like I get nervous when it's like, you know, anything thinking about that, because it's like, okay, the week before, I'm not doing anything. Like I don't do anything stupid now anyway, but I'm making damn sure that I'm healthy. Like if I'm going to a show or something, like if we did all get together and do a podcast, I would 100% be like, I'm taking my vitamins, I'm drinking water, I'm drinking milk, orange juice every morning. Like it's wild. I mean, it's kind of a weird question, but is that something that you guys see in the industry sometimes? Is people that maybe, and I don't know how to word this, but I guess I don't want to say get too big for their britches before they get actually somewhere. Cause like, trust me, I don't feel like I've made it in any way with this podcast. It's fun. I love getting to meet you guys.
That's what
There's still a lot of work to do.
You know, it's just fun.
Yeah. But is it like a thing you see?
Go wrong.
Do you ever see somebody that like will come in and they've got really good potential and then they just mess it up?
Oh, you know, I don't think I've ever really paid attention to it too much from that side because, you know, I don't know. I've never seen anybody really come in and, well, if you want to throw bracket in the mix.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking of, but I didn't.
That was a mess up.
Yeah.
But I never really have even known bracket as far as on a personal level or anything. So, but yeah, that seemed to be a mess up. I haven't really ever, you know, seen anybody just come in and, you know, as long as you just be yourself, that's what it's all about. Where you get in trouble is when you try to put on a show for somebody or be somebody you're not, is where you can get in trouble. But as long as you're just yourself, I mean, you can't lose. If they like you, they like you. If they don't, they don't. And no love lost either way, you know. But a lot of people will try to put on a show or go a little too far. And I've seen things kind of get out of hand that way a little bit. But as far as ruining something, you know, I've never seen anybody come in that really took a job and then did a nosedive or anything.
Gotcha.
Main thing yourself, and you know, that way if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and you don't have to worry about putting on a show every day for the rest of your life.
Dude, I'm telling you, beginning this podcast, it was the weirdest thing because I've only honestly been hunting for 6 years, bow hunting for 4. So I'm still relatively new. And like starting a podcast 2 years into hunting, it was one of those things where like when T-Bone came on, I can't tell you how nervous I was because I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I don't know. I think I know this stuff, but I don't know this stuff. And it's one of those weird things where 2 years later, it's like you kind of I still don't know anything, right? I mean, you never know everything, but
I learn every day.
Exactly.
I mean, that's it. You know, life itself is a ever learning journey, and the day you quit learning, you're missing out on a lot. Like me, I've been in the fire service for gosh, over 25 years now. And, you know, even now you got to try to learn something every day. I'm learning stuff every day. If you ever get to the point to where you think you know it all or you got it whooped, a lot of times karma and God step in and let you know real quick that's not going on.
Oh yeah. That is so true.
You know, yeah, I don't care how much knowledge anybody has, there's still always stuff out there to be learned. And You know, woods are ever changing, and I see stuff in the woods all the time. You know, you think you know something, and you see this animal do something totally different, and you're like,
Yep.
oh my God, you know, that there's no predictability or anything about what's going to happen when you're out in the woods or whatever. So, in that unique ability, you know, you're always learning. And even like with bows and stuff, stuff's constantly changing. So, you got to keep sharp. You know, to me in life or anywhere else, the learning process never stops, should
Yeah.
never stop. Should never stop. Let's put it that way. So, but you got to look at where you came from. You jumped into this and started doing it early, but that's been a basis for probably all your knowledge. Somebody that would have sat back never would have had the knowledge you have now.
Yeah. Well, and that's the reason I brought it up.
Dale and getting all these advice from them that you can use moving forward. And that's the best
Mhm.
way to learn. I was self-taught as a hunter. You know, my dad, when they grew up, you know, dad always said it was the talk of the town if they saw a deer track. You know, deer weren't as prevalent back then, you know,
Wow.
they were young as they are now. So, you know, he didn't know anything about deer hunting. He never got into it. You know, they farmed for a living. And so, you know, they were big into birds, you know, quail, dove, that kind of stuff, but never got into the deer side. So I was self-taught on all the deer stuff. And you just, like you had to be around the people and soak up the knowledge. And back when I was coming up, we didn't have, you know, cell phones and everything. It was all magazines. So
Mhm.
I you know, subscribed to Buckmasters, and I was getting I was just a leech for, you know, just absorbing, a sponge, just getting all the information I could in. And, you know, then when I turned 16 and was able to get out and go on my own, then I really started hanging out with some people that were hunting and learning the craft. And, you know, but I didn't kill my first deer, period, until I was 16. Now I started hunting earlier than that. I probably started hunting about, you know, 12 or so, but being my dad didn't know that much,
Yeah.
you know, we were actually learning together, which it was fun from that aspect, but we started from ground zero,
Yeah.
just going out there and sitting on a dirt pile with a 30 rifle and trying to figure everything out. We knew nothing about wind direction or,
Yep.
you know, any of that kind of stuff, you know. And I think I shot at a couple of deer and just missed them and all kinds of stuff. But once I was, you know, 16 and able to get out and travel, you know, and all that kind of stuff, is when I really started hanging out with some people that had a lot of knowledge, and went from there. So yeah, I was very self-taught in the deer woods.
Yeah. I mean, like early on stuff, I could tell you want to talk about wind direction. I learned that in extremely hard way.
Right.
Where I'm gonna tell you, this is my first year hunting. Okay, my first sit ever, I killed a buck, a little 1.5 year old. Right, so I'm thinking I'm the baddest thing in the woods.
That's
Up to
right.
that point, the only excuse me, the only I guess experience I had was playing Deer Hunter on my computer.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
so I knew nothing. The
Uh-huh.
next weekend, this is in November. I have a basically. Do you remember Wish? I don't even know if it's still around anymore, but Wish. It's kind of like Timu.
I don't remember anything like that.
Okay. Well, it's basically like cheap eBay,
Yeah. Okay.
right? So I have this Rambo style camouflage mesh net.
Uh-huh.
And I take two nails and I find these two little sapling trees that I can spread this thing apart because I don't have a tree stand yet.
Uh-huh.
So I get a hammer, nail one side, nail the other. I get this little, I think it's a dove seat from Walmart.
Uh-huh.
And I've got my 308 rifle. I have all my, camo on from Walmart. I'm Walmarted out.
Right.
I had a 130-inch. I think he was an 8 point that my daughter named Sheriff because she names all my deer, right? And this was on 3 acres in Conyers. Now I'm sitting there and I got the wind in my face, so it's a good setup as far as the
Right.
wind's concerned. But I went and looked like later and I saw the camo mesh net. It was
Uh-huh.
terrible. But
Right.
I had Tinks because I'm told Tinks is the best stuff out there, and I've had it work. I mean, it works.
Yeah.
and the wind's blowing really hard in my face, and I take that bottle and I stick it straight out, and I go,
Got a mouthful.
I got a mouthful, an eyeful, a nose full. You should have seen my wife's face when I walked in the house after that. She's like,
Um,
"What happened?" I'm like, "I don't want to talk about it."
right now.
It was rough.
Yeah,
And then I learned what wind direction was, and
absolutely.
I've never done that before or since. So I feel like learning it and doing the dumb stuff early on is fun because
It,
you have funny
it's
stories.
fun, and it makes you learn at a different rate. To me,
Mhm.
I learn more from my mistakes than anything else. Sometimes a bad mistake, you'll make sure you never make it again.
Oh yeah.
Is to where if somebody just tells you about it, it might go in one ear and out the other, and whatever. But learning from mistakes to me has always been the best way to learn things, and I've made a lot of them over the years. I ought to be a wealth of knowledge.
Well, expect your phone to get blown up because I will say, "Hey, Pitts, so I'm thinking about trying this. What do you think?"
Oh yeah, no, and I mean that's where stuff's sorted out, man. Is just talking about it, because I'm one that I might know what I want to do, but I also want to know what this person's going to do,
Hmm.
because they might see something I don't, or and there's lots of times we'll be in the woods, and I'll say, what would you do? Where would you? And lots of times when I'm thinking about putting up a new set or whatever, I'm asking, hey, go with me, and I want you to look at this area and tell me what you think before I decide what I'm going to do. I do that kind of stuff all the time. I always want other people's input on any kind of situation,
Hmm.
because people see things differently. They might see something I don't, or they're thinking something I'm not thinking, or whatever. And, it's always better to have two people there, have somebody shed their light on a situation. So
Yeah.
you ask for help at
Oh
all.
yeah. No, I mean I do that all the time, dude. I mean I do honestly attribute the, I guess you could say, knowledge that I've just learned this year to a lot of the people that I've gotten on the podcast, friends I've made through the podcast. I mean, it's crazy what can happen with this. And Kurt, I call Kurt all the time from working class, and I'm like, all right, man. So podcast wise, what do you think I should do about this? And he'll give me all the details. And we partnered up with them about 3 months ago, and that's been going really good. So it's kind of like slow steps and stuff.
Yeah, they're good people. I did one of their earlier podcasts. I think I can't remember. Don't quote me on it, but I think I was only like 40 something for them.
Hmm.
They're
I
up,
remember it.
they're up there. Good gosh, they've done so many now, but
Creeping up on 700 now.
yeah, they're they're
Unreal.
they're such good people and down to earth, and we still talk on the phone all the time and hang out when we get the opportunities to. In fact, they're probably at the ATA show now.
Yeah, they are. I think they got in yesterday or today.
Yeah, I think today was the first day. Yesterday would have been a setup day,
Okay,
but
so probably
they
yesterday.
have a media room to where they bring everybody in and out and all that kind of stuff. They usually have a pretty big setup. So, but yeah, they're
So
good people.
why aren't you at ATA?
Oh, Realtree stopped doing a booth there a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of money and expense into that. They put up a real big elaborate booth in there and used to do a lot of bit, but it seems like a little bit of a lot of your businesses are kind of dropping out of ATA here the
Hmm.
past few years for some reason, and I don't know why. Matthews was one of the bigger companies that first started doing it years back, and then they kind of formed their own show and network they do now. And then some of your other bow company, I think somebody told me there was only like one bow company going to be there this year or whatnot.
Well, because I know Dennis Lewis and them with Obsession are up there today,
Yeah,
but I don't know if there's any other bows up there.
I
Now that you
can't.
mention it.
Yeah, I can't remember who there was very few, but anyhow, it's just a lot of money and expense on me to go without somebody you know Because by the time you get a hotel, see, they get you on hotels there too, because you're gonna pay about $300 a night.
Hmm.
And you got to stay there. You'll probably be there 4 nights. So, you're spending over $1,000 just in a hotel room, and it gets pricey. Plus, everywhere you eat up there is going to cost about $50 a meal. It gets pricey. So, unless I've got an engagement or, something like that I have to do, typically I won't go just
I
because it
gotcha.
makes no sense for me to spend all that money unless I've got an objective I'm trying to get done.
Yeah.
Do like going and seeing everybody and getting to talk to people, because a lot of times that's the only time you get to see people. So
Hmm.
that's one of the aspects I miss about it, is just getting to see my friends and people I don't get to see on a daily basis and catching up with everybody. That sort of thing's what I miss more than the business side or anything, it's just a lot of these people you talk to on the phone day to day, and you never even get to see them but once a year or whatever. So uh
Yeah.
but yeah, it just plus I'll have to take a vacation day from the fire department and all that, and it just you got to weigh the pros and the cons every time. So
I gotcha.
some years I'll end up going, some years I end up staying at the house and getting stuff. Another thing is our season's still in.
Yep.
So
Yeah, it is. That's why I'm not there.
I'm still swinging from the trees and having a good
Yep.
time there. And uh, but yeah, mainly it's just really there's nothing for me to. If there's no objective, it's just not worth spending the money unless I've got an objective or a
Yeah.
task. Somebody's wanting me here, there, or whatnot. So
Yeah.
it just depends on. Just
Well, do what?
I said it just depends on.
Yeah. I mean, I got invited to it, but I told my buddy that works at Ace up in Social Circle, that archery shop up there with Big John and those guys.
Uh-huh.
He was like, "Hey man, you go to ATA?" I'm like, "Dude, season's still in, and I got 2 buck tags."
That's
Yeah.
right.
I was like, "Plus, I'm going to Colorado in 2 weeks." Nope,
That's
sorry,
right.
I'm busy. But
Yep.
I don't know. I'll go up there eventually. It's just one of those things that I have to plan it
And
ahead.
it's great fun. It's and another thing that's changed. They used to release a lot of new product there and
Hmm.
see it first there, and they used to have a lot of great deals there. Back when I was working for the shops and had my own shop and all that kind of stuff, you could only get deals in person at those shows, and now they
Hmm.
offer them, for 2 weeks after you get home. Uh,
Yeah,
do it all by phone or whatever. So there was always a lot. It's just not what it once was at one time, I guess you could say. So, I've gotten to where, if I've got a purpose there, whatever, I go. And if not, I kind of save my money.
yeah. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man.
That's
Well, look,
it.
I feel like that we can't end this on a negative note of ATA not being what it used to be. So give me some positive. If someone like myself is struggling with bad shots this season,
Uh,
has I have a spot that has 5 different shooter bucks. I
right.
One of them daylighted yesterday. I'm going tomorrow. What positive thing would you tell somebody like myself that's like, hey, I got 3 days left, maybe one more sit because of this weather it's supposed to come in?
Uh,
What do you got for me, Pitts?
the best advice I can always give is follow Mother Nature. Uh, the wind is the biggest thing, and that's where I have learned can make or break you. I used to say, well, I'm going to go to this stand. I never looked at the weather,
Mm-hmm.
never cared. Now let the wind tell me where to go, because I promise you, you will not get away from that big buck's nose or that alpha doe we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Playing the wind has been such a vital component of my success in the past. And that's one of the biggest things of advice I've got is play the wind. Don't just say, I want to go to this stand today because that's where I want to sit. Make sure it makes sense to go to that stand and your weather conditions are right and that sort of thing. To be honest with you, when I was in the stage of just, well, I'm gonna go sit here today. I never used to kill much because of the fact that I wasn't looking at the wind. I wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
And it's more important as a bow hunter to, look at the wind and all, because of the fact that you've got to get that much closer to your game. You're trying to get that game 40 yards and in, and that's tough to do. With a rifle, you can be a little bit, less careful, I guess you say, with the wind. But as a bow hunter, you got to watch the wind. I mean, that's been my biggest factor as far as success, because a big buck's never going to let you know he's there.
Yeah.
He'll smell you and turn around and leave before you ever lay eyes on him.
Oh, I've had that happen plenty of times, I'm sure.
Yeah. You never knew he was even in your area.
Yeah.
So my biggest thing to help with level of success is to watch that wind, especially as a bow hunter. Watch the wind.
Well, you got me feeling comfortable now and excited because the wind is perfect tomorrow. So I am I'm hopeful. I'm not going to get cocky. I've been doing that all season. Said, oh, tomorrow's the day, and then nothing. Or I see a spike.
Positive. You got to stay positive, and it'll happen. It's just some days are better than others.
Oh, I know. Let me tell you a quick story, real quick, before we wrap this up. You're gonna get a kick out of this. I want to know if you've ever done this. So, and whoever's listening probably knows what story I'm gonna tell. If you've been listening to the podcast, you probably know which deer I'm gonna talk about. I had this deer named Trike, and he was originally this really big, like 130s frame 6-point.
Yeah,
he broke his main beam in June, I think. But still, I wanted to kill him, right? 5-year-old deer, whatever. I had him pegged, just like you were saying about your buck earlier. Showed up every single day. I knew when he was showing up. Opening day, I went in there saying he dies tonight because he daylighted the day before. Yeah. It took me 3 weeks to get that deer in front of me. The only reason he showed up is because when that hurricane came through, that was the best movement I've seen all season. Right. So here's the bad part. Okay. It sounds like a good story, right? Sounds like there's success behind it. No. I sit till dark. This is at 7. Actually, I know when it was because my buddy Josh killed his big buck that was on the property I'm hunting now. I wasn't hunting there then, but he killed his buck at 7:15. I sat till 7:30. I knew Josh was waiting on me, because he had already texted me saying, "Are you on the way yet?" And I was like, "Well, I still can see the power line, so just give me a minute."
That's right.
And I'm like, "All right, well, he needs me. It's late. I'm not going to see anything, or I'm not going to see a trike." So I, get my bow on the bow rope, set that sucker down. The second that bow touches the ground, when my cam touches the ground, I look up, and this dude is coming up the power line 15 yards away. So hold on. Right. So I slowly try to pull the bow up. I get it about probably yay high, maybe like 4 foot.
Yeah.
And it starts spinning because he looks my direction.
Yeah.
He sees that, doesn't blow, but he runs up because I'm hunting next to a driveway that my father-in-law's parents live. And so it's really close quarters. Right. He goes up the driveway and goes up to the main road. And I'm like, okay, I got like 5 minutes left. Screw it. And I just brought the bow back up, knocked the arrow, clipped on, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking. Sort of give a little bit of I guess explanation of the property. It's the power line, and then there's a small patch of woods across from the power line. It's 25 yards to the woods.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm looking, and I'm like, 5 minutes go by. I'm like, that's an old deer. He ain't gonna come back. So I unclip, take the arrow off, do the same exact thing. And as soon as that bow touches the ground again, here he comes out of the woods across from the power line, 25 yards, goes straight to the feed. And I'm like, what? So I try to pull the bow up again. I get it up halfway and he sees it and he just gone. And that was the last. I think he disappeared 3 weeks after that. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he's dead. So it's been a season.
Settle in. Sometimes they'll do that. They'll get weird about something and just push out, and then start running cameras, and there they are again. Each individual deer's got their own personality. As far as I've got them that they'll be on me all summer, every day, And then the second they shed their velvet, they're gone, and I never see them again till next summer.
Yeah.
And some of them are very homebodied to where it doesn't matter what you do, you can't run them off. And it's each deer has its own personality, and it's neat kind of figuring them out. I had one deer one time, he used to leave for 2 weeks during the rut every year. And I don't know is where he liked to be to chase does, but I wouldn't see him for 2 weeks, and then he'd come back in there. It's neat to figure out all those personalities. So he very well could not be dead and show back up this summer, and settle back in. So,
dude, if he does, he's gonna be a giant. I'm telling you. I hope I can keep that property. But anyway, man, I've kept you long enough. Pitts, I had a great time, dude. I'm so happy that you agreed to come on here. You are a blessing to the hunting industry, truly. I believe that.
I just do my best and have fun at it and hope people enjoy.
Oh, hey, everybody that I told you were coming on, especially my buddy Thor, who actually lives kind of close to you. He was like, "You're getting Michael Pitts on?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "We've been friends on Facebook for like, I don't know, 6 months to a year." And I've been meaning to reach out. I finally did it. And he's like, "Dude, what?" He was freaking out. So you got fans here, buddy. You're a hometown hero and a national treasure, in my opinion. But before we finish this up, do you have any shows you're going to be at? Anywhere anyone can find you? Social medias, shameless plugs, and all that?
Social media. I'm on. It's at the Real Pitts, and then Facebook. It's Michael Pitts Outdoors. That's about all I'm on is Facebook and Instagram. And shows not sure yet as far as this year goes because my fire department schedule and all, it's kind of tough with that. And a lot of my stuff ends up being last minute. So there's nothing in the books as far as shows right now. But, typically I'll update on my social media and stuff like that if I'm going to be certain places. So.
Gotcha. Well, if you have the time, we would love to see you at the World Deer Expo or the GON Blast. That would be great. Yeah,
I was there a couple of years ago. Typically, I'll go to the Buckmasters deal in Montgomery. So I'm in and out. I'm like a pit bull without its leash. I'm liable to be there. I'm liable to not. So
yeah,
who knows? But yeah, working with the fire department schedule and all that, is kind of affects a lot of it as far as where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing. Because I tend to hoard it all till hunting season to where I can get these trips in.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all, man. Well, look, thank you for coming on, dude. This is definitely in my top 5 of episodes I've done, and I cannot wait to get you back on. Hopefully we can do one in person the next time we do this.
Yeah. No problems at all.
Awesome, buddy. Well, I appreciate it, man.
Rock on.
Yes, sir. I love it.